It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
As always, we appreciate the time of the Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas. He is here on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. We are always streaming, of course, on your iHeart TuneIn or the KCMO Talk Radio app. Mr. Mayor, good morning. Let's just start off here with this story. Came from the Kansas City Star. A bullet broke through Chiefs coach Andy Reid's office. This was May of 2024. Did you know about this, or did you hear about this for the first time yesterday?
I must have forgotten if it occurred. I did have a short conversation with the police chief yesterday. There may have been notification to the Board of Police Commissioners at the time, but I actually really wasn't aware. Now, of course, if you're treating it like normal things and normal people, even if I was aware, we don't actually share the status of victims, particularly of non-homicides, unless they for some reason show some willingness to. So it is not normal protocol, certainly for the Kansas City Police Department. I think that's the right call to say either who's been robbed, what has happened, or anything like that. So that part isn't unusual. Certainly this type of incident is. I know KCPD continues to investigate, and I expect them to find any assailants and certainly bring them to swift justice.
Have you had any conversations with the Chiefs about this, either last year or since this broke last night?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I've talked to them a lot since then, including the coach himself, and it has not come up. And so I have to believe they feel they are safe. I know they invest mightily in security. They work closely, it seems, almost daily during the season with KCPD, and I imagine they'll continue to do that.
What's your thought, or maybe a theory, as to why this happens to become public 15, 16 months after it happens?
It's strange, isn't it? I mean,
Very.
And unfortunately everyone's safe, so we can, hypothesize in these areas. But it is, look, it's the sort of thing that somebody felt some reason and need to leak, even though, it's in public police reports. So it's just the sunshine. I haven't actually figured out. Sometimes I do take time to think, but haven't had time yet to think why somebody thought this was a strategic thing to post now. Perhaps you're trying to either sully, the city of Kansas City. Maybe you're trying to attack KCPD. Maybe you just think it's interesting. Maybe you're attracted to drama. But, a decent number of stories that we end up reading sometimes do kind of come from this sort of genesis. Talk to the Chiefs regularly. I think that, they have not brought up this issue with me, Chief Graves, and others. We've had many other conversations about many other things since then. And so, I think it's an issue that will be investigated by law enforcement, working with private security, KCPD, as they did with recent break-ins to some of our more prominent players. They do that work. They do that work well, and I trust our authorities working with chief security to make sure everybody's safe.
Well, I think the first thing you said there is spot on. Is it someone trying to play the border war game with the teams and the stadiums and saying, you know what? Here's another reason this team should not stay in their current location. I'm not trying to be a pessimist here, but that's the main conclusion I keep coming to. Do you think that's an inaccurate conclusion or an unfair conclusion to come to?
No, it's not an unfair conclusion at all, and I don't want to craft a story that says Lucas says this is, somebody else, because I have no real idea. But if I was thinking about who is trying to place a story, and it has all the trappings of it, right? You give the story to a good writer, and Sam McDowell at the Star is a good one, right? You get it in a place that can amplify, and actually you use print media, even if they're not read by everyone, but they usually will write a whole story, right? They give you kind of the headline that you need, and then you share it like that, right? Television stories are in some ways fleeting just by the nature of the medium. So, it was a good placement, right? If you're kind of in that sort of campaign. So I would think it certainly would behoove someone who's trying to play that. Of course, the challenge is you're trying to convince the Chiefs, and the Chiefs knew about it a year ago. So that's why it's kind of a bizarre placement, because it's kind of like, oh, hey, look, things are so bad. The team didn't know anything about it, maybe, but you're trying to, persuade people who continue to talk to, the jurisdictions in our region, continue to work with them. And I think are going to make a generational decision that's based on more than what appears to be, thankfully, a one-off incident. And even no matter what you say about Arrowhead and Kauffman Stadium now, they're not particularly close to anything. And so I think that the incident isn't indicative of, gang activity or street crime that's happening on one Arrowhead Drive that bleeds into the practice facility. Seems to be a very isolated incident, and I think Chief Security and KCPD will get to the bottom of it in the same way that I would know that Kansas City, Kansas PD or any others would get to the bottom of it too, in any of our urban jurisdictions that occasionally face violent crime issues.
Mayor Lucas is joining us on KCMO. So with that, since we haven't touched on it here in a couple of weeks, how are you feeling about the odds of one or both of these two teams staying in Kansas City, Missouri proper?
Oh my gosh, the palace intrigue continues. Look, I should have just recorded an interview with you as I did like 3 years ago, because I'm saying the same thing, right? Look, think about this. I have learned this recently. In a few weeks, Nebraska is playing Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium. They are likely to have a sellout at Arrowhead Stadium for the Nebraska-Cincinnati game. Congrats to all the Huskers in this region, right? They have top-notch concerts. You are minting money at Arrowhead Stadium right now. I do not actually see the financial benefit or need. And people, I know on shows later than yours on this station and up and down the dial, well, we'll get a Super Bowl one time, mind you, right? I just don't see the reason. I'm not even thinking about the kind of fake star bonds. How much can they actually calculate? Add up to and all of that. How much more money would the Chiefs make as compared to the billion plus or $2 billion that they themselves, notwithstanding government incentive, would have to spend on a new stadium and a new parking lot, and new on-ramps and off-ramps, and all the infrastructure. You're telling me that you got a stadium right now where you got free rent, where you got ongoing maintenance, where you have strong government support and an incentive to renovate it over on the Missouri side, but you're going to spend $2 billion to get one new event like ever? And then basically the concert tours are what the concert tours are. Not that many people can sell out Arrowhead-sized stadiums. It's Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Chesney, a few others. But, so I continue to think the Chiefs stay there. It isn't me being homerific. I know people listen to this show in Missouri and Kansas. Kansas lobbyists, don't worry. You don't have to call freaking out. This is not based on any new thing. It's just common sense. And then as to the Royals, look, that continues to be the one of the more interesting sets of twists and turns in our community of what's happening week to week. Did they or did they not buy that part of the Sprint campus? What does it mean for the note? What's going on in the Missouri side jurisdictions? I can't even keep up there. All I'll say is, look, we're all putting our best foot forward. They'll make a decision that makes sense for the team, frankly, from a financial position, not based on temporary politics on who's in what seat or anything like that. It's going to be what makes sense for the teams, frankly, probably how they can spend the least, how they can maximize value for the team, how they can make the most money. I think that is Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. I continue to believe that's downtown Kansas City, just precisely because you get a lot of people at events downtown.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Lucas is here on KCMO. I saw this just popped up here, an article in the Washington Post where you are quoted as saying, regarding the crime issues in Washington, D.C., that they're looking to exploit the issue for political gain, not to solve them. And we spoke about this last week.
Yep.
But interestingly, I'm looking at some of these crime numbers here, and violent crime is down 30%. Robberies are down 48%. Motor vehicle theft is down 30%. Wouldn't you say that based on those numbers, they are solving the crime issue so far in Washington, D.C.?
There is a wonderful mayor in Tampa, Florida. She's a former Republican. She was police chief for years, and she noted this, right? Anytime you shut down activity in an area, you actually will have an impact on crime. The question is, does it come back? Is it in any way sustainable? And what are you doing long term? Yeah, if you have 3 tanks outside of my house, I think my house will not get robbed. I'll give you that. And frankly, maybe that's a good deal. I don't know if the taxpayers can afford to do that forever, but, that's the sort of thing that happens. I think what a lot of mayors are saying is, and, I noted in the article, it's a wedge issue the president's using, but it's not a bad one, right? Nobody wants crime in their community. But I think that what you are actually looking to try to do, and what police officers and local police departments have to do every day, is how do we make sure that we're actually solving long-term crimes, getting criminals that commit repeated crimes off of our streets, conducting real investigations, doing the real regular work of law enforcement. A police department with the greatest respect to security guards aren't just security guards, right? They are investigators. They're the ones who are looking into drug trafficking. They're the ones who are looking into why crime is happening in different places. That requires professional police work in American cities and good collaboration with our partners from federal agencies. What it isn't is just people standing in the spot and arresting, name your set of people. So, I guess your statistics would be that in 1 week, those things have dropped that much. I haven't read actually the full piece. I'm not sure about it. But I actually think that the women and men of the Washington Metropolitan Police Department are going to have to do continuing work to make sure that whoever is selling drugs in Northeast D.C., not on the National Mall, by the way, for those who've been to Washington, the preposterous idea that there are a bunch of carjackings outside the Smithsonian and that's where all the crime happens isn't really what Washington, D.C. is. Same way with Kansas City. But, look, I don't think that it's bad sometimes to have a surge. I just think that you're going to actually have to find a way to fight crime more permanently thereafter.
Mayor Lucas on KCMO. So then on that note, you look at Kansas City right now and some of the issues that you're facing. One thing that I'll never forget somebody in law enforcement in this town saying is that, Kansas City, yes, it's a large American city, but when it comes to the crime, we know a lot of the people, it's a small subset of individuals who are committing this crime. And you're right. There are long-term systemic issues that always need to be addressed. But can it be as simple as figuring out who the small group of bad people are, whether it's here, D.C., any other major American city, getting them where they need to be off the streets and prisons? And at least that, before you look at the long term, is a great place to start. And it seems like too many aren't doing it.
Yeah, look, I collected a gaggle of haters years ago, probably during the pandemic. You talked about that before, and you'll probably do it in your after action on Quinton Lucas. But no, I am very much, I guess it makes you tough on crime on this viewpoint. I would arrest people now. Hell, a disagreement I have is actually if there is a shooter that shot somebody and you're having trouble finding offenses, I always say, hell, there's a municipal ordinance violation that is like unlawful firing of a firearm. Right? If you can't get them for the ag assault, i.e. the shooting and hitting of somebody, sit them down for 2 weeks in a municipal jail while you figure out another way to do it. That's something that I try to preach all the time. Justice has to be swift and certain, and in many ways severe, but certainly swift and certain. Every study tells us is important. So now you get the trigger pullers, you get them almost immediately, because if you're somebody who is shooting at someone today, you are likely to shoot at someone again, and the odds are you're not going to miss forever. More American cities need to sit these types of people down. I am wholeheartedly behind that. I encourage more of that, and folks who can help us do that are important and are vital. I think that is something you need to see more of in American cities, and I think any politician, national or otherwise, who agrees with that is key. And I'll actually say this to disagree with my friends sometimes to my left. They talk about systemic issues too much, frankly, in every issue, right? I know there are a bunch of potholes today in Kansas City, and I can give you a long kind of extemporaneous speech on why it happened. Too much infrastructure, right? We need to do this. It's different concrete. No, you want it filled today. You want resurfacing today. It's why we've quadrupled the budget in that area, right? We're not doing everything that we can, but frankly, we're trying to get there, and I know there's still a lot of volume. Same thing on the crime issue. You got to get the people now, use whatever tool you have to sit them down in the justice system. I would fill up the municipal courts tomorrow, and everybody's like, this is an ordinance violation. I'm like, well, you know what? If you shoot somebody in Kansas City and we're having proof issues on the state felony charge, then by golly, yeah, this is what we're going to do.
All right. When is the groundbreaking on the new jail? Got a date yet?
We don't. It is, and I frankly will show some frustration on two different issues in Kansas City right now: the new jail and resurfacing of Broadway. There is an RFP that's out right now. I believe we have responses. I'm not sure what's happening here. I do know that there's the temporary jail chat. There's the eighth floor chat. We're so frozen in the kind of different parts of what part of jails we're going to have that the whole build the thing is actually slowed down. Look, my goal was let's just buy the old North Missouri Corrections Facility in Cameron, Missouri, start busting people there, own it. We could have all the control. State of Missouri didn't want to sell it to us for any number of reasons. But, I think there's a way to get to faster solutions. Seems like building new things isn't always the one.
So I don't need to clear my calendar for the ribbon cutting yet. That's still a TBD.
I am sure you will show up. Although, Pete, and this is something my critics would have fun with, I don't even think we need a ribbon cutting. We'll just start building it. So, do you need the image of me in front of it? Maybe some people want it, but I think that as soon as we can get moving on that, we need to. I do think, and I've told you this before, there is a reality that a lot of these things are very unlikely to be opened by the World Cup. Certainly the big facility is, but on temporary jail, where the time estimate was 11 months to 16, and the World Cup is, 10 months away? I think it's time for us to have a realistic conversation that says, all right, what are we really going to do? What other jurisdictions are we going to work with to make sure there's sufficient space, rather than having even more meetings about more ideas that frankly lead us to bureaucratic delay rather than the solutions we need.
Well, I'm just looking out for you here. I'm just saying, if you need someone to fill in, I know it might be bad optics for a Democratic mayor to do a ribbon cutting for a jail, so I'm happy to take your place if you need it whenever that day does come. That's just my offer.
It could be the best politics and pints ever at the new jail groundbreaking. And look, it'll get done. The voters approved it. We'll make sure it gets delivered. I just think that it is taking too long. I do not think, however, it should be a substitute for arresting people as you need to, making sure there's swift justice, and calling every sheriff in Missouri and saying, hey, we'll pay you probably double the premium to make sure that there's a place for this bad guy to go.
All right. Mr. Mayor, thank you. As always, we appreciate it. And just for the record, there's only a postmortem on our conversations when the callers are fired up. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Thank you, as always, for your time.
We'll see you.
All right. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO. Yeah, politics and the pint outside of the new jail, whenever that day comes, wear your orange. Bright orange only. That's the attire.